Hello everyone, back at it again in my little gray crawdad. Got a beautiful morning here. Unfortunately the clouds appear to be leaving us. I'd like those clouds to stick around a little bit longer. Bright blue skies. Just a few scattered clouds to the west. We've got northwest winds to start, but really not much wind at all. I'd prefer a little bit more wind. But those northwest winds were shifting around a little bit. Some southwest, some west, some northwest. So I'll say light and variable winds. So you know my game plan by now. I'm headed to the other side of the lake where there's a little bit more wind. I like a little bit of a ripple on the water. And we'll see if we can catch any fish once we get there. Alright, just to start out, we're going to be throwing a JT115 walking bait. It's a silent bait. I cut the motor, or I'm going to cut the motor and kind of ease into this spot. You don't want to go full blast into the spot you plan on fishing. You just want to kind of glide in there. The wind's at my back. It's going to be pushing me along, even though there's not too much wind. And my very first cast, I got a fish. That's a good sign. That's how you want to start. I like that Evergreen JT115. It's a silent bait. There's no knocker. There's no weight transfer. And so it's a lot more subtle than some other walking baits. Even though it's a decent sized bait. It's 115 millimeters. It's subtle. And that's what I want on these bluebird conditions with bright sun. I don't want a loud knocker. And the fish seem to like it, so I'm going to keep throwing it. Got my lip grippers on them. I mentioned in an earlier video I got stuck a few weeks back, so I'm being a little bit more careful with those trebles. There he is. Nice little bass. Good way to start. Hopefully that's not the first cast curse. Let's do that again. Got a few drops on the lens, but that'll burn up pretty soon. Just walking the dog, walking the dog. I've got a loop knot on the front, 15-pound Maxima Ultra Green, and I added a dressed treble on the rear of the bait. I said this before, but I'll say it again. The bait had a tendency to want to dive under the water without that dressed treble back there. So I thought a little bit more resistance, it might keep the nose up. And that seemed to work out really well. Normally I don't add a dressed treble to walking baits like this, or at least spook type baits. Look at that, I got another fish. That's my second cast. Oh, and disaster struck. That was a smallie through the hooks. I cut away some of the footage there, but I threw that walking bait around a little bit more and I couldn't get any more fish. So I'm going to hang it up and switch gears. The other thing that happened is the wind cut out. Like I said, it was blowing northwest and southwest, and sometimes not much at all. And when that happens, I reach for my BFS rod. That's a Jenko double down rod. Really like that rod. And the reel is an Arc Gravity reel, which is a clone of a Hybo Arise. Very, very similar reels, even though I've seen some reviews, they don't even mention the Hybo Arise. If you look at the pictures online, they're almost identical. And that's what the reel's based on. I mean, why not just say that? But it has kind of Americanized features, which I like. It's got rubberized grips and padded handles. The Hybo Arise has these like plastic posts for handles, which I'm pretty sure I would not care for. But I like that reel. The reel has a few shortcomings though. It doesn't have a ton of drag. So even with the drag locked down, when I set the hook, I can hear the drag slipping and I can feel the drag slipping. I missed one just there. Can't really blame the drag for that. I'm working out the best hook for that bait. That's a Bass Assassin Shad. It's a 4-inch bait. I'm trying a 2-aught grip pin 2X fine wire hook in it. It's a very thin hook, so it should penetrate very well. But that hook still isn't ideal. I'm just testing it out. I'm trying different things, and it's going to be a lot of trial and error until I get the right combo for that bait, because I really like that bait, but I don't have the right rod, line, hook combo for it yet. They filled in the belly slot with plastic, so there's a lot of plastic to penetrate to get into the fish. And my Jenko double down rod, it's pretty soft. So when I go to set the hook, the rod just bows up. Plus that drag slips. I missed another one just there. But I probably missed 50% of the fish on the BFS combo on this trip. And that's way too high. With a Super Fluke Junior, I've got the right hook for that. My hookup ratio is really good. And once the hook's in them, they generally don't come off because the rod bows up so nicely. It's just getting through that plastic and then getting into the fish and getting that hook set somewhere solid. See, that hook just fell out. I could have lost that little bass at any time. So I'm still not dialed in there, but it's a work in progress. I'll list it in the video description. Just keep in mind it's not dialed in yet. It looks like it's about the right size hook. I think I might just need a different rod for this hook to get through all that plastic. But, you know, it's kind of on the water testing. Figure it out as I go along. This is my second cast after that last fish. Oh, I had another one. No, I bowed up on him. Felt good. Checking the hook. Had a little bit of weed there. Alright, this is a couple casts later. Casting out into deeper water. That reel makes a noise like a wind-up toy when you cast, which I don't love, but I think it's the internal centrifugal braking that's working. And it actually casts pretty well, so I don't mind the noise as long as it casts pretty well. I could use a few more pounds of drag. But overall, I really like that reel. It's the nicest BFS reel I've fished to date. I also had a Cast King Zephyr and a Kingdom reel. Both were kind of cheaper quality. Didn't cast very far. Had another fish blow up on it. That one, I don't know. I didn't really set the hook very well. But with the Zoom Super Fluke Junior, you know, it's more like they get it instantaneously. I don't even have to set the hook so much as just reel into them. And usually I stick them. But I want to stick with this bait because I'm trying to figure out what I'm doing wrong exactly. And see if I can get a few more fish to actually come in the boat, see how they're hooked. I'm getting closer, but I'm still not dialed in. But I did end up catching a few on it. And I think on this next cast was another one. Professional overrun there. It's alright. Take care of that. Watch the line tighten up. That fish ate it on the fall. I wasn't even working that bait. And it's a pretty decent smallmouth too. Gotta back off the drag just a little bit. Make sure I don't pop my leader. Smallies always seem to like to jump more than the largemouth. And this one is not disappointing. Dancing all over the water. Got my net ready. It's a pretty light leader. It's 6-pound Yozuri hybrid, which has the diameter of about 10 pound for higher grade fluoro. And it's about as strong too. Not bad. That one I didn't miss. came out pretty easily though. I was lucky to get him in the boat. Eventually I had to put that Bass Assassin Shad down. I have to figure out a better hook or better rod for that bait. I just can't stand missing 50% of the fish that are going after it. So I'm putting on a reverse rig. This is the Hot Snakes color. That's a 2/0 Neko hook that I added a fluoro keeper to. The fluoro keeper is key because it keeps the nose of that bait up on the hook. Otherwise it balls up and you miss like 90% of the fish. But with that hook keeper or bait keeper, it's really a bait keeper I guess, you end up hooking 90% of the fish. It makes a huge difference. And I moved around and I could see some bait flipping around on the surface. And those are herring. They're not very big and they don't look anything like a Hot Snakes color big TRD. But I noticed in some other places, a lot of times where there's herring, the crawfish will come out underneath the herring and try to pick off any herring that get injured or drift down to the bottom. At least they do in places with herring runs. Anyway, I found that I can do pretty well fishing crawfish style baits underneath the bait balls of herring. You can also do pretty well fishing herring colored things, but sometimes I like to be a little different. And the retrieve is pretty slow. I'm using my rod to work the bait and just using the reel to pick up the slack. I could fish it even slower here. My herring went underwater and popped up 20 yards away, so I just kind of followed him. And I got a bass. He's not a giant, but I got no wind and I'm catching fish still, so I'll take it. Hooked right in the top of the mouth. That hook's in there too. He's a skinny guy. I thought he might have something in his belly or in his throat. I couldn't find anything wrong with him. Sometimes they have hooks or Senkos lodged in them. I didn't feel anything or see anything wrong with him. He's just really skinny. I caught another little bass and then I decided I was headed for the ramp and I ran into more herring schools. So of course I have to stop the boat and fish them for a minute just to see if there's any fish under them. At this lake, like most lakes, the fish are either on structure, like points, humps, islands, stuff like that, cover, like weeds, sticks, etc., rocks, or they're on bait, in this case herring. And that's true pretty much everywhere you go. They're always on something. That largemouth had a smallmouth following him. Smallmouth was a little bit smaller, but it tells me there's more than one fish with that school of herring. And if I was thinking, maybe I would have thrown a different bait back at him, but that's alright. He was kind of small anyway. Alright, I had a good time out here this morning, chasing fish around in bluebird skies and not too much wind. I should also say it was 48 degrees when I started fishing, and it's almost summertime. It's almost June, so it was a pretty cold start, and it knocked the fish back a peg. So I was happy the way the morning turned out. It's starting to get a little bit warmer now, and it's time for me to head back to the ramp. So thank you all for watching. I really appreciate it. I'll list everything in the video description just like all my other videos, so you can duplicate exactly what I was doing here today and hopefully have some success on your home waters. I'll catch you on the next one. See ya!